Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Hormonally Speaking. Today, we are diving into what I think is a fun area, but I know can be triggering for some women because of past experiences with exercise. Maybe when they were young, they were sort of forced to do something that they didn't really enjoy, or, the idea was always weight loss and the focus on that. But we know how important, and I always go to the term movement, right, rather than exercise. We know how important movement is for the body, that we evolved to move our bodies, right? And that unfortunately we are not tending to move our bodies as much as maybe we should be, or that our bodies really want us to be. So we're going to be diving into all of that today with my guest. Dawnelle Arthur is a movement therapist, orthopedic exercise specialist, health coach, and online fitness teacher with over 20 years of experience. She specializes in helping people recover from injuries and helps to improve their mobility, flexibility, strength, and agility in every class she teaches. Dawnelle is the owner of Defy, an online movement therapy studio that offers live workouts on Zoom, feel better movement therapy programs, and over 100 online workouts. She is passionate about helping people recover after injury and has experienced making a comeback, having bounced back stronger than ever after 2 hip replacements. With her unique blend of expertise and experience, Dawnelle is dedicated to helping people feel better daily through her movement therapy and fitness programs. You can learn more about her at her website, agedefyme.com, or follow her on TikTok at Move Young Live Young. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so glad to have you here and talking about this subject that is both exciting, I think, for a lot of people, and also daunting for a lot of people. So let's actually dive into the hip replacements aspect, because as we were talking about before we hopped on here, a lot of women are going to have some surgery at some point in, particularly, I'd say, in that midlife region, right? Whether it's you have a C-section from, giving birth, or whatever other thing happens. So how did you end up having to need those hip replacements and then move back into moving your body afterwards?
Okay, so I had a C-section 12 years ago with my son. After that, I had to have another surgery because the C-section, the scar tissue had wrapped around the nerves, and I had to have a nerve entrapment surgery. So I had 2 abdominal surgeries within a 2-year period, if I can remember correctly. And at the time, I still was teaching all my yoga classes and doing all that stuff. I owned studios in Denver at the time, so I still had to, take care of my son and do all the classes at my studio while I was still trying to recover from both surgeries. Now, did that cause my hip replacement needs? I don't know. Nobody knows why my hips needed to be replaced. All I know is that around age 40, I started being like, what is wrong with my hip? My left hip specifically. What is wrong with my hip? And you have to remember, by this time I'd been teaching yoga for 12 years. I had taught hundreds of people how to teach yoga. I just kept trying to fix my hip, and it just wasn't, nothing was happening. And then I started going to chiropractors, and then I started going to massage therapists and acupuncturists and rolfers. I did everything I could to figure out what was wrong with my hip before I finally got the dreaded MRI. And I was hit like a ton of bricks on what they said. At the time, my left hip had an acetabular cyst, grade 3 arthritis, a torn labrum, a torn gluteus medius. I mean, I was a wreck. And this was after also a year of adventures that I'd spent with my best friend, where we did 4 days on the 4-pass loop in Aspen, Colorado. We ran a 16-mile mountain race in Alaska. And my hip, this was right before coming back from Alaska, I found out about my hip, right? And so I just wasn't prepared to think I was going to have my hip replaced.
Yeah.
Time, there was nothing on Google about a yoga teacher needing her hip replaced at age 40, 41, right? So I was just alone. And I will tell you, for the first time in my life, I hit a 3-month depressed period. I lost my identity. I lost everything I thought I knew. I felt was wrong. I felt like I'd led hundreds of people down the wrong road. I just couldn't believe it. I really had an identity crisis. And so one day I just remember being so upset. And then I finally was like, oh my goodness, I don't know who put this thought in my head, but it came in my head and it saved me. And it said, if this is happening to you, sooner or later, it's going to be happening to other people. And fast forward, I'm 48 now, fast forward 8, 9 years later, guess what? It is. I have so many people now in their young 40s reaching out to me going, they just told me I have to have my hip replaced, And so I'm so thankful for my hip injury. I'm so thankful that I did this because I wanted to serve a certain group of people that I felt needed me, because I really needed somebody during my time and there was nobody. So I became that person for everyone else. And that's what saved me. And now I get to help all these other people. So with that said, I decided at the time, I visited 9 doctors. I visited 9 doctors, and all of them said, not all of them, the 9th one is different. Okay. So we'll get to the 9th one, but all of them said, you're too young. They won't last forever. I'm telling you, every one of them suggested get a career change, consider a career change. Cause at the time I was a full-time yoga teacher. I owned like 5 studios in Denver, Colorado. And they were like, you need to consider a career change. You really need to take it easy because you cannot have surgery. You need to hold off for as long as you can. And I could not take their advice. I was just like, adamant not to take their advice. And I knew they were going to give this advice to everyone else, and I could not do it. So I went to work. I stopped teaching yoga and I went to work. I took foot therapy classes. I took mobility classes. I decided to stop learning from yoga teachers and start learning from every movement specialist out there. So during my pain years, I started to learn from Ido Portal and functional range conditioning, mobility. Lymphatic health became a passion of mine from Stop Chasing Pain. So I basically went and got all these certifications and all this experience of doing different movement while I was trying to figure out when I was going to have my hip replaced. And and through that, I took the little pieces that were feeling good to me, and now I've created this whole program that is, what I did was I'd spent years trying to fix my hip. And what I did was I stopped that. I stopped trying to fix my hip and I went to work on the rest of my body. And I went to work on my mind, not through like stay calm, but more like accept this, accept it right now. Because if you don't, you keep fighting against it, you're never going to rise above it. And that was the voice in my head. And now I am to where I am today. And I had my left hip replaced May of 2019, and I had my right hip replaced on January of 2020.
Okay. Wow. Really close to each
Yes.
other.
So I didn't even know about my right hip. I will tell you, I just told this story the other day. My 3rd doctor said, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're right. You're not getting out of this life without your right hip being replaced either. And I remember tears just rolling down my face in this doctor's office. And I just thought he was so mean. And I really walked out of there just angry at him. But he was right, because as soon as and even my 9th doctor said, you need them both replaced, you need them. And I said, I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, so I felt like my right hip was never in pain, but as soon as my left hip was replaced, oh my goodness, my right hip was so painful.
It had been like holding all of that because the left hip couldn't handle everything. Yes.
Yeah. So my doctor had actually said I was supposed to have my right hip replaced at 3 months after the left. I had begged him to do both at the same time, but
right. Yeah.
But I just wanted to I just thought, why not? But anyway, he wouldn't. So left. And then 3 months later, it was supposed to be right. But I was just feeling so good. I had my life back for the first time in so long. So it was actually a lot farther apart than it was
initially you were planning on doing it. Wow. So I have to ask, do you feel like yoga was a part of this?
I think everything is. I think there's nothing, I don't think we heal in one way. That's the reason why I don't just teach lymphatic health. That's the reason why I don't just teach yoga. It's the reason why I don't just teach step flow or any of the thing. I teach a million classes. My philosophy is this. I think that you need to move new and weird every day, not just for the body, but the brain as well. And so my clientele, we never do the same workout twice. It's never yoga every day. It's never one thing every day. It's something different every single day.
Mm.
And in that way, you don't rest. I don't believe in rest days. I believe if you need a rest, great. But I have this theory of, even if you feel like you need a rest, do one song of movement, just one song of movement every day.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel like doing a workout, do one song of movement. Turn on your favorite song and just do some age Defy movements, scapular rotations,
Mm-hmm.
T, pull. I mean, just this movement therapy stuff that we do. Do one song and I'm good. But I believe movement is the medicine for the brain and the body. And when I say the brain, keeping the brain young and active and energized, but as well to be able to change your mind around a story.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't change my mind around my hip pain and my hip definition, there's no way I'd be sitting right here right now. I would have taken those doctors' advice and taken it easy, gotten an office job, and I would not be the Dawnelle I am today. And I am so thankful that I changed my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for people to recognize, I always say this on the podcast, despite the fact that I had a surgery go wrong, my first surgery go wrong, and that led to multiple surgeries after that. We can't, I think we get into such black and white thinking in this culture right now of, that's all bad and this is all good. And the reality is everything, from my perspective, is somewhere in the middle, right? And that it's best when we understand that, like you said, it's like you contacted and worked with all of these different types of people, right? You did rolfing, all of these things. And then to try all those things and be like, okay, this wasn't quite enough for the situation. And it's okay to have a surgery, that use the best of both worlds instead of getting into this mindset of really putting yourself in a box and maybe inhibiting your healing path by saying, oh, that's bad over there. It's like, just explore, right? And trust yourself ultimately to make that best decision for yourself.
To be honest with you, I wish I wouldn't have done the whole chiropractor and rolfing and massage thing. Honestly, I spent a lot of money researching for pain relief that nobody can give to yourself but you. And that's when I changed my mind. I just said, I have got to figure out a way to help people relieve their pain through their own body, because my clients can wake up in pain and before maybe they met me, right? Wake up in pain and wait for their massage appointment or their chiropractor appointment to live. But one song of movement therapy can also relieve that pain. And if you can be that resource for yourself, you don't have to rely on any one person. I'm not saying anything of that's bad. It's great. But what it also, at the time I was losing my hips, I also started losing my business in Denver. So my finances took a major hit. And then there did come a time where I absolutely could not afford chiropractic visits or massage therapy. And so then that made me very compassionate to other people who didn't have the resources to do that. And I felt like it was my responsibility to give people of all income brackets a chance to feel pain relief.
Yeah.
The only way you can do that for free is learn how to move your body.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole empowering people situation versus saying you have to rely on me or someone else in order to get better. Absolutely. So after you had the second hip replacement, how long was it until you were able to start doing movement again?
Oh, well, so this is very important. I believe that, let's go back to like the surgery. A doctor says you have to have a surgery. To me, let's just call it joint replacement surgery, because I can only talk C-sections and joint replacement surgeries, because those are the only two surgeries I've ever had. So let's just talk. You go to the doctor and you've had this hip pain for a couple years, and the doctor says, oh, you're going to need your hip replaced. I do not believe that person should go right into a hip replacement right away. I think that what they should do is something called like a prehab. They should get their mind and their body and their lymphatic system functioning so well before they ever go have that surgery. Like, I think they should spend at least 3 months, at least 90 days doing work before they have a surgery. The other thing is I say this, and it's a saying from Martha Graham, who is a dance choreographer. She says, movement reveals all. And that is part of my coaching method. We are in our position for a reason. And if you do not reveal what that reason is, right? So I will tell you, I spent my whole life walking like a duck. I have very hypermobile hips. I was a yoga star because my hips could move in ways that most people couldn't.
Right.
That is not a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but I was too young and too addicted to everyone thinking I was such a good yoga person because the way my body moved. But what I'm saying is you have to reveal what got you in that position in the first place and start to rewire it a little bit and get things ready. So like, I can just tell you about a recent client of mine. Her name is Victoria. She's an orthopedic surgeon's nurse. Her husband is an orthopedic surgeon. She needed a knee replacement, but she wasn't ready to have her knee replacement. So she started with me at age Defy doing Zoom classes. She wanted to keep playing pickleball. That's my whole message. When they told me to sit on the couch and take it easy and get an office job, I decided I needed to figure out ways to keep me moving and keep me in the job that I love. So Victoria heard me say that somewhere, and what she loved was pickleball. So she wanted to be able to play pickleball until she had her knee replacement surgery. And that's what she did. You know, she played pickleball and now she just had her knee replacement surgery. She's already back in classes and it's awesome. And so that's what this is all about. You know, you have to come back. You have to get your body ready before the surgery. And then you have to do your rehab. And I'm not necessarily the rehab person. I am more the post-hab or the prehab and the post-hab. Rehab, I'll leave it up to the physical therapist, right? That's physical therapy work. But what I do is physical therapy work too, but it's before and it's after. Victoria used me for her rehab, but that's because we've worked together for a year before she had her surgery. So she felt comfortable with me returning to rehab. But I'm just saying my claim to fame is pre and post.
It's interesting because there, you know, is some of the fertility experts that I've talked to, the holistic fertility experts, really talk about that 3 months before you get pregnant. And it's the same idea of prepping your body, right? And this is a little bit, you know, more focused on maybe gut health and things like that. But it's the same idea of you really prep your body because our bodies are amazing. And the more that you support them in that time before you go into something that's going to change your body on some level, the more that it's going to be able to handle that. And then I don't want to necessarily use the words bounce back, but the more that you can get back into movement and things like that after it's over without having to wait a long period of time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I love that correlation. I say at least give it 90 days. Like find out you need a joint replacement and then give it 90 days, right? And find out what you can do. Where does it lie? Because another thing that I love to say, and it's from my coach from Stop Chasing Pain from Lymphatic Health. He says, where it is, it isn't. Where the pain is, it isn't. And we need to find it. We need to find where it started from because it's all connected. But where the pain source is has usually come from something below it or above it.
Can you explain actually, because people may not know about the lymphatic system, they may not understand functional, you know, movement. Can you explain these things?
Kind of, yeah. I don't have a script, right? I explain things through motion. I explain things in a class filled with my community on a Zoom class, and you know, and all of a sudden I'll just say something, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm explaining this really well. But I will tell you that the lymphatic system and learning about the lymphatic system and truly believing in the reasosoning behind you have to focus on it is just true in my life today. So it was way before I even had the hip replacements, right? It was like soon after I found out I needed my hips replaced, I went and studied with Dr. Perry Nicholson because his name was Stop Chasing Pain. And I had chased pain forever. So I was like, I think this is meant for me. And so I went to Texas and I was sitting in a gym filled with personal trainers. Like I didn't know what I was getting into, right? And chiropractors, because he's a chiropractor. And he walks into this gym full of like personal trainers. Like I'm talking gym people, right? And I was the only yoga person in this room. And he walks in and says, I know you guys are all here to learn how to, help your clients lose weight and how to help them do this. But if there's one thing you can take from today's course, it's you need to find out about the lymphatic system. You need to start training your clients on a healthier lymphatic system. And for some reason, that went inside me, and I came home and went down the rabbit hole. So I explain it as the lymphatic system is the system that helps everything just kind of move along. I don't love to say detox and all that kind of stuff, but it is a part of your toxic system. And when it becomes stagnant, that's when you age. I think if your lymphatic system is stagnant, that is the signs of aging. Okay. So, the lymphatic fluid is a fluid that needs us to do it. So the blood flow is constant. That just happens. We can increase blood flow through movement and breath work, but the lymphatic system has no pump. You have to be the pump for the lymphatic system. And the way to do that is the way I do it. There's many ways, but I only do through movement. Massage, tapping, right? Flushing, and then moving, pumping it, right? So we go. So if I was just going to do like a little bit of, I touch the whole body and we get to know it, but let's just say I don't do full body lymphatic in all my classes, but there's a lymphatic series in every one of my classes because I think it's that important. It could be in so many ways, but let's just take the chest. So I would just go fingertips. I lift the chest in my fingertips. I teach them, I call it lymphatic breathing. I want their ribs to open with their inhale, right? And then I want them to feel that energy. And then we go a little harder, faster. And then we tap and then we flush. And if it's anything above the heart, we're flushing down. If it's anything below the heart, we're pulling up, right? And that stimulates our lymphatic fluid to start to flow. And that flow is, I'm not for sure why you don't want to use the words bounce back, but I'm going to tell you, I feel like it's helping me bounce back. I don't want to say the wrong thing or trigger anybody, but I really do feel like I've bounced back mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, because every day I am stimulating my lymphatic.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really important from, the perspective of a lot of what I do with clients is working on gut health and then, essentially whatever you want to call it, metabolism or detoxification, right? The body has to break down everything that comes into it, metabolize it, detoxify it, move it out, and the lymphatic system is something that is overlooked a lot in that process, right? It's one of our major drainage pathways. And that is what I see it often in my practice too, that gets backed up so often, right? And it's not something that's really focused on enough. And so I love that that's a component of it because you can sort of do all the other things. And if the lymph isn't moving, we know, that when the lymph gets backed up, and it can be really bad down the road, it can lead to breast cancer. It can all these kinds of things. And so it's like, this has to be a part of the whole, focusing on the whole body and really make things move. Yeah.
Inner and outer. Like I teach exercise. It's funny you said that because I never use the word exercise barely ever. I do it just sometimes people just don't understand what I'm saying. So I'll say exercise, but movement it's movement therapy. It's movement medicine. It's just movement. Inner movement, outer movement they're both important.
So tell us about functional movement. What is that?
Oh, I don't know what functional movement is. I don't do that. I
thought you said that earlier about functional movement. No. Okay.
You said that and I was like, I wonder where that's coming from.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't do functional movement. Okay. I focus on foot therapy, joint health. So, every joint has its job and I want that joint to be able to do its job, but because you've connected through the muscles of the joint, you know what's going on, right? Thoracic spinal mobility, rib movement, and lymphatic health. Those are literally like the 6 things that I focus on. And all of my classes, even though they're all have different names, all 6 are focused on. That's the only repetition. That's the only thing I focus on, these 6 things in all my classes. Like I taught step flow today, which is Defy step aerobics. We do it barefoot because foot therapy, right? And then brain body connection through the feet is one of the most powerful things that I think the world is missing out on. The fitness world is missing out on. And so step flow, we did lymphatic breathing. We did, joint health, even for our hands and our wrists and our elbows. So everything I've created focuses on those movement therapy components. And that's my functional movement, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, can you dive a little bit more into the joint aspect? Because I think that that's such a common pain, especially as women start to get into their 40s. I see it a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you keep asking me questions. I could talk for hours. So I do, and I am so talkative, but joint health is a passion of mine because I had unhealthy joints, right? And so it all begins in the feet. Listen, if you do not have foot stability, if you do not have, if you don't learn if you have a bunion and you don't know how to work your feet with the bunion, you've got to get the feet working. And I think that is how we have joint health. So, every class we're working on joint movement, right? To increase the range of motion in every joint, to increase the stability and mobility of every joint, and to create the connection of mind and body through the joint movement. So those are like 4 joint things that I'm focusing on. If the feet can't support the joint, you know what I'm saying? If the feet, so to me, it's foot therapy all day, every day first, and then you start working in the joints. So, ankle mobility, your ankles need to be mobile. So your feet, you need foot stability, ankle mobility, knee stability, hip mobility, sacral stability, thoracic mobility, scapular stability, shoulder mobility, right? So what I do, knowing the body knowledge of the joints and what the joints need, we create that. I create scapular stability. I create shoulder mobility. The problem is that you can't just train the joints to be what they're supposed to be. They need range of motion of both. They need to be able to be stable, but also mobile. The shoulder blades are meant to be a stable joint, right? But the thing is, we've loaded them as we're not engaging them through everyday life, right? Stabilizing them through everyday life. So you have to have a teacher like me that's like reversing the office on the back, right? And on the posture. And then the shoulder blades get stuck. And when they're stuck and there's no movement in the scapula, that can lead to pain all over the body that no one's talking about, right? So to me, even though the scapula is meant to be stable, what it's not meant to do is be stuck. So I move the shoulder blades a lot in my classes.
Makes sense. So I have to ask, what do you think about weight training alongside all of these things? Yeah, I'm super curious.
If you followed me on TikTok, you would know how many people get so mad at me about my thoughts on weight training. So Okay, so of course I weight trained my whole life. I am an exercise scientist. I started my career at 20 in college as a trained personal trainer and a certified personal trainer and aerobics instructor. So I've been a personal trainer since I was 20 years old. I am now 48 years old. So that's 28 years of being a personal trainer. And I believe in weights, but in a different way. But before weights, I believe you need to test your joints. And if your joints cannot support your own body weight, then there's absolutely no way you should have an external load as a strength training option. And that's what gets me in trouble on TikTok, because everyone's been told, oh, when you get in your 40s, you start losing your muscle mass. You got to lift weights or you're just gonna. And it's bull crap, excuse my language, but it really is. I think it's very irresponsible for anybody that's saying for people to go and lift weights in the gym without doing mobility and body weight strength training first. And that is, I'm very passionate about it. Yeah. So I do have a strong program. The only reason why I even got back into lifting weights with my clients is because my clients who have been with me for so long, they started saying, what about weights? Should I go and start lifting weights? And I didn't want them to lift weights with anybody but me. So I created a strong program. So once a week, we lift weights.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. But only if they pass the test. Do you want me to show you the test?
Yeah, show it to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. this is what I call tiger position.
Mm-hmm.
And if you at least cannot do tiger and hold this, and then also get yourself out of tiger, and then to be able to stand up without any joint pain at all, then you can take my strong program.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I wish everyone would do. I really think you have got to be able to support your toes, your ankles, your knees, your core. Core is not just here, but you know what I'm saying. I wasn't dropping my belly. I was keeping front and back strong. My hands, my wrists. You know how many people I put into tiger and they're like, oh, my wrist. They didn't even know they had wrist pain.
Yeah.
But they're lifting weights in the gym.
Right.
Like,
right. Yeah. No, it makes sense. It becomes one of these things that is so popularized that is 4 steps later than a lot of people are at. Yeah, no, I can really see that. And how you can really damage your body, especially if you go in trying to lift too heavy of weights too quickly and you don't have that stability.
I didn't have stability, and I'm out there, teaching CrossFit style classes and lifting weights like crazy. And so when you asked, was it yoga? I don't know. What if it was weightlifting with my hypermobility hips? What if it was that I taught 2 yoga classes and then went to the gym and lifted weights and then also did a hike that I love to do, right? What if it was just the combination of all of everything?
Yeah.
When I started thinking of like, I was a almost an everyday snowboarder for 10, 12 years of my life as well. And I mean, I started thinking like this, wow, hips, you really gave me 40 great years. Thank you so much for those years. I would change nothing. So if somebody wants to blame me because of my active lifestyle for my hips, I would rather have been active the way I was for 40 years and have my hips replaced later on in life than take, you know what I'm saying? Take it easy.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's a beautiful way to look at it too, right? Because I mean, as your whole approach has been to look at that situation not as this life ending or career ending situation, but something to deepen you into who you are and what you do in this world and supporting other people. So yeah, it's pretty amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
My website is actually agedbyonline.com. I have 2 websites, but it's byonline.com.
Okay.
And so reach out to me on agedbyonline.com. You can also, I have a private Facebook page. It's called Age Defy at Studio Bodybuilding. That's really where I do most of my communication and coaching just to the masses And then my TikTok is Move Young, Live Young. And it's not just a TikTok page. It's really a TikTok studio. I coach a lot. I do 3-minute coaching videos. And I also show what my training does. If you go to my TikTok and you see some of the ways I move, you can't move like I move until you put 5-6 years into what I do, right? So I only show what's possible. And then I also do a lot of coaching and stuff. So I really love my TikTok page. So if you love TikTok, go there.
Yeah. And that's a great way for people to really start to understand more deeply what you do and how you work and train. So very cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this amazing information with us today. And I think it will give the listeners a lot to think about for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, I will see you next time.